Today we're going to do a walk around of our shed and show you the sort of stock that we sell on a regular basis. We've got our painted plastic section of disaster military models, very nice orc painted models. We'll just have a close up there, Michael, of one or two of these. These have been painted to competition standard. I think they're a Bad Moon yellow colour scheme, so they're very nice. There's quite a lot of those. Underneath that we've got some Astra Military models, nice heavy tank, lots of infantry. Some OPP Cadian models. These are actually metal ones, not plastic, the ones at the back, from the Rogue Trader era. And as we continue down, we hit an Isle of Space Marines. All sorts of chapters, Ultramarines, Blood Angels, Salamanders and the like. Some painted, some unpainted, some very well painted, and some kind of gaming standard. There's quite a lot. Basically, that is a big product seller of Games Workshop. They tend to sell more Space Marines than anything else. Therefore, second-hand, we acquire more Space Marines than anything else. You look at Grey Knights at the moment, Grey Knight Nemesis Dreadnoughts, etc. Quite nice paint job on those. We've got quite a lot of trays of these to have a look at, basically, more than anything else. Space Wolves there, OPP models, Rhinos and the like. I think they're part metal, part plastic. Sold a few of those, are quite popular. Space Wolves always one of the better sellers in the Space Marine line. The model featured there probably painted something like 25 years ago. At the time, that would have been a very well painted model by the standards of painting 25 years or so ago. Iron Hands there, some Forge World models I would have thought those units are. More up to date Space Wolves, some Primaris on there. And again, a few more mod units of Space Wolves on the following couple of 3 trays. Some more trays of Space Marines, mixed units, some Ultramarines there, a few unpainted Primaris on the back of that tray. Again, a few more Ultramarines and other chapters, and armour gear, and some Raven Guard. And then we move on to some Blood Angels, obviously one of the main chapters and always a good seller. Some Primaris Intercessors currently being viewed. A couple of Dreadnoughts on that tray. As we go along, you'll see some more Dreadnoughts, some Terminator unit. There's a Firstborn Tactical Squad, some Assault Marines. And as we move on to the bottom shelf, there's a Storm gunship there, some more Dreadnoughts, Bar Predator and a Rhino, along with one or two looks like older metal models and some more Primaris Space Marines, quite well painted. Battlefleet Gothic box set. Very sought after, complete. Retails a fortune these days, but they're quite rare. 30 years old and don't often come with the full contents, but in this case, this one does have the full contents. And here we have a Battle of 5 Armies, Middle-earth / Lord of the Rings game from about 30 years ago. This is complete. Well, more or less complete. I think there's one miniature missing. We'll show you the contents of this one. Again, it's a set that's very sought after. They're not cheap because they just don't exist anymore in this sort of state where there isn't a lot missing. I think there's only, perhaps, I think there's 1 or possibly 2 models missing off that particular spruce you can see there. But you can find those second-hand, and we will do, and we'll make this set up by purchasing the couple of models that are missing, then that'll be offered for sale. A rare opportunity to purchase a nice complete box set. And that's a sealed box you're looking at now. Necrons in the box, factory sealed. We do get some OPP box sets in. Forces of Fantasy, Warhammer supplement, quite a rare and sought after box set, so we do get that sort of thing in from time to time, along with the more modern box sets. An Ork box of Wasboom Blast Jet. We also from time to time get bigger box sets, that particular one being out of production fairly recently. Seems to be quite high demand for that sort of thing. They actually seem to sell more on the second-hand market than they do retail once they're out of production. That's another Ork box set, this time unsealed, but complete with all instructions, all spruces there, and any stickers that would naturally come with. Bretonians, OPP Fantasy Battle set from 20-30 years ago. And now we start on with our Chaos Space Marines. Seem to have quite a lot of Chaos Space Marines in at the moment. So Chaos Space Marines, Death Guard Chaos Space Marines. Looking at Poxwalkers at the minute. Seem to have a lot of Poxwalkers in stock. I don't think they sell particularly great, I'd have to say. I don't know if that's because they're not great in the game. I wouldn't know. I've never actually played them myself, personally. It does have a bearing on how well something sells. More Chaos Space Marine units. Some Terminators. Unit of Plague Marines. Painted in the typical green colour scheme. As we go on to the next shelf down, I can see a couple of old Rhino models there. Rogue Trader base, they seem to be fixed to the bases. Quite a good colour scheme on those. A lot more Poxwalkers again. Some more Chaos Space Marines. A larger Forge World model coming up now. And some Death Guard characters next to it. And as we drop down a level, there are some Warhammer 30k. We do stock Horus Heresy. Not loads of them, but we do sell quite a few. Well painted, those ones. All from Forge World. And one of these Orks models is a very large Astra Militia and looted battle tank, kit bashed. It's quite a nice model, really. Bit of just stressing on it, gives it a bit of an aged look. Quite a lot of work has obviously gone into that one. As we come up the shelving units, I'll take these trays off the top here so you can get a good look. We've got some nicely painted Gene Stealers from the Gene Stealer Cults faction. Once purchased, obviously, whoever buys them can paint the bases in. And then as we come down that shelving unit, we come to various Necrons. Some painted again, some not painted. Again, standards of painting varies from gaming standard to a little bit above gaming standard. Next door to those, we've got a couple of shelves of Eldari units. Quite a lot of War Walkers and Wraith Knights amongst this lot. Most of these would be plastic models, although there are a few units of the old metal units as well from about 20 or so years ago. Got some scenery which don't really offer for sale, but just use it for our in-house gaming. We just play occasionally, you know, every couple of months we'll have a game between ourselves, so this kind of comes in handy for that sort of thing. As we turn around, we start our VOS models really. In the right hand corner you'll see a big pair of Forge World Demons. These are resin models. I think it's still available from GW that we've got in stock. They're quite well done. Next to them there's some Sylvaneth Wood Elves, a couple of trays of those painted models. Underneath them there's some Skaven units, some unpainted models, some units of unpainted models which we tend to sell off a lot more cheaply than we do the well-painted stuff. There's some LOTR stuff here, and some of this, however, isn't Games Workshop. It's Harlequin and Mithril miniatures, again quite nicely painted, and some of the Mithril stuff is quite sought after, so it doesn't tend to be on the cheap side. More LOTR stuff again. Most of it is GW, some of it is not GW, however. GW stuff is primarily plastic, but there are some metals as well. When people have got Games Workshop products to sell, sometimes they'll have an overflow of historical miniatures, so we'll buy those as well at the same time as we're buying the GW stuff. So I think you're looking at Greeks, looks like Alexander the Great, 25mm metal models. Next to that unit we have Stormcast Eternals and Nighthorde. We don't find these sell particularly well, I'd have to say, due to the fact that I think Games Workshop with the magazines have released a lot of these type of models, so though we do stock them, they don't fly off the shelves. Space Marines again, just odd units really, a mixture of different chapters, some quite nicely painted ones as you're looking at the moment, and some not painted to such a good standard. Flesh Tearers, got a few units of those in at the moment. We had a lot more of those, but they've since sold, so it's just kind of what we've got left really. And as we move down, a few more odd ultramarine units. On the bottom shelf we have some older models, but they're very basic painted base marines, tactical marines and the like, not painted, I have to say, to the best standard in the world, but we always try to have something for everybody, so the price reflects quality of the paintwork. And back to some more better painted models. Crimson Fist Dreadnought by the looks of it. We do sell quite a few old codexes, old rule books and that sort of thing, and you can see some of the sort of thing that we sell here. Codexes from 10, 20, 30 years ago, and some more recent stock as well, obviously. We'd share this with you all. So this is what we use to pack all our models in. We use new cardboard boxes, we've got bubble wrap, we've got jiffy bags, we've got poly bits, which we always find useful for packing. We've got single wall boxes, double wall boxes, cotton wool. We have to stock all different types of boxes for different types of model. It's always a bit of an intricate job. 99.9% of our models do get to you intact once purchased off our eBay store, but as always we do get the odd issue with the odd joint coming loose, as kind of things we move about in post. Hopefully they don't move too much. We always communicate with our buyers, so if there is any problems we can always do whatever we can to resolve it. So, and we haven't got too many issues. As I say, we're really diligent with our packaging, therefore we don't get too many issues, and we're well sorted for different size boxes and different types of packaging material to ensure that you get your models free of damage and as seen in the pictures on our online store.